Hi, welcome to another episode of the LifeHugger Podcast. I am Evelyn, and here with me today is my friend Ridge.
Hi.
And today the topic is going to be intercultural relationships.
Yeah.
And how did we come to this topic?
It's kind of how we met. We're not in a relationship.
We're not in a relationship with each other.
The first time we met was our respective partners. We kind of had like a double date.
Yeah.
Right? At Eric's place. So I'm dating this girl called Suyeon who knows Ev's boyfriend, Eric. And I guess they were close in the sense that Eric was one of Sue's first friends before she moved out to Singapore. And they were saying how it's a whole Indo-Korean thing. So
yeah, we're both Indo.
Oh yeah, context-wise, yeah, we're both Indo.
And then my boyfriend and his girlfriend are Korean.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when we meet people, they're like, oh, you guys just know each other because you're Indo. We're like, no, actually it kind of went around. Talking about intercultural relationships, do you feel that there's a big difference between your culture and Sue's culture? Because I think a lot of times, for me, I feel like even though we grew up in different places, we hold very similar values.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's more similarities than differences, right? I guess they're both kind of Asian-ish.
Yeah.
I guess very family values driven. Like with me, I think it's quite similar. Where like a lot of importance on value and pride and.
I actually don't immediately see a huge cultural difference. Whenever you go into a relationship with somebody, there are bound to be just individual differences.
Yeah.
Right. So then what do you attribute to cultural and what is just like
personal, right?
Yeah, that's just how they are.
Yeah, it's true.
What do you think is the best or like the most fun thing about being with someone who's not from the same cultural background as you?
I think the best thing, I guess, it's when they show you their home or their culture. They show you your country and their city.
Yeah.
And for you get to see this entirely new place, but from a very personal local's perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And you get to see where they grew up or what they used to do. But it's very personal, so
It's different from just like going there as a tourist.
Yeah, very different. You're kind of spoiled because contextually you just kind of understand everything. They can explain everything. Language is no longer an issue because they can translate for you. And you eat the most amazing food and meet the most amazing people because everything's kind of filtered down to their taste. Yeah, so a big plus of intercultural relationship, the food. Yeah, you will find something that reminds you of home, but it's completely different. Like some of the soups sometimes I find that sense-wise, it's kind of similar to like a lot of the like Japanese soups. But like the ingredients and preparation's very different. And I was like, we're all the same after all. But yeah, what about you? What's like the best thing?
I think definitely the traveling part too, because by association, it kind of makes you feel like a local.
Yeah,
you're like, ooh, I know this place too, when you actually don't. But the other thing is, I think I go into the relationship with less assumptions of what this person is like or like how he should behave in a relationship. If I were to date an Indo person, I think I might have expectations. Like he's Indo, he must expect me to buy gifts for this occasion.
Oh, it's the third day. We gotta go somewhere fancy.
Gotta
dress up. And
what do you think are some of the expectations that Indo boyfriends or girlfriends have?
The weird thing, I think it's like this whole like PDKT, the whole courtship thing. Which I never understood. Like even growing up, it's like why is there like it's like a process, right? Just to give context, like the whole courtship or the initial period where you're trying to like understand each other better. In Indo, it's called like PDKT.
It's like getting close to a person.
Yeah. And then. I kind of get because you kind of like flirt and text and whatever, but the whole thing of like nembak. So nembak literally means like shooting or to shoot someone. So you have to, especially when you're younger and in high school, you have to like, it's a big profession of love. And keep in mind, you just like know this person for sometimes even a few days or a few weeks. And you're supposed to say like, oh my God, this is amazing. Let's officially be boyfriend and girlfriend. I just thought the whole process was like, I'm not sure it's distinctly Indo, but Indonesians definitely do it. And then there's always like a whole aspect of bringing your family and bringing your parents into it. So even like early on in the relationship, they would be like, "Oh, I need you to meet my parents. I need their verification that like they support you and then they support us." And then Yeah, I think like even from an early stage in the relationship, you have to show that you're capable of being like the husband, even though it's like you're just dating, you're just starting. And I don't know if you found this, but like, do you find that you dress up more? I guess back then.
I think that's kind of like how I perceive Indo culture, regardless of like dating or not.
Yeah.
People really dress up, or like they dress to impress.
Yeah.
You know, even if you go to the mall, you're dressed in your like, your like designer t-shirt, and like you bring your designer bags.
Yeah.
I think there's more of it's like you want other people to perceive you a certain way. So that carries into relationships. When you meet the parents, you want to look your best.
Yeah, and when you give gifts,
be
a good gift. It has to have a brand on it.
Yeah. And speaking of parents, so that's one of the things I think that is a challenge. When it's someone from a different culture, I think parents always have a harder time accepting.
Maybe. Especially, I don't know. I feel like in Indo, like everyone kind of knows each other, or they're like only like a few degrees apart.
Exactly.
Parents are like, oh, they're so-and-so is so-and-so.
Exactly. They'll know, like, oh, that person is, you know, my friend's whatever's child.
It's like a referral bonus.
Yeah. Have you found it tricky introducing Sue to the family?
Parents? So I guess it's a benefit for us because like, I guess Korean culture is having a boom with all this like K-pop and K-drama and K-whatever, where at least they know about the culture. They know a little bit about it, or at least they know of it.
Yeah. Does your mom watch Korean dramas?
No, but my like cousins and my nieces and nephews, they do. So when I introduced Sue to my family, I introduced it to my closest cousin first.
Okay.
And I remember the first thing she was asked was like, oh, I watched this K-drama. Like, do you know so-and-so? Like, what about this?
And Sue was like, no, I don't know.
No, I don't listen. I don't watch this. So when I was introducing them, they had these stereotypes. And the funny thing was when I first told my parents that I was dating a Korean, my dad was really happy because he was saying how, like, oh, that's great. Koreans are submissive. This is great. I was like, what? You have no idea.
You haven't met Sue.
Yeah, I haven't met Sue. But I just found that hilarious how they have the stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the stereotypes are actually pretty good. Like, Koreans work hard and they care about their parents and they care about societal expectations and they care about education. So that bit kind of really helps. And how was it with you? And
now they've met quite a few times and they like him as a person. But I think my mom, she hoped that I would end up with like an Indo person, you know? I think also location-wise, like, oh, if I ended up with a Chindo, then I would be in Jakarta or whatever, like closer to home.
I remember I told this to my parents once. It's kind of like, just because you have certain stereotypes of people doesn't mean it's true, right?
Yeah.
For example, you can have the same person, similar upbringing, same parents, very different personalities, like you and your sibling. Me and my sibling, very different.
Yeah.
But if you look at the social structure, it's entirely the same or very similar. And how are we supposed to make judgments about someone who are, you know, half a world away?
Yeah, because I would think that I might have even more differences with someone who is culturally Indo or like grew up in Indo than I do with Eric. We're doing a podcast on intercultural relationships, yet I feel that maybe culturally we're not like too different.
That's true. But don't you think it's because we're both culturally quite different or outside the norm of Indonesian culture, and then Sue and Eric are very different culturally than like Korean culture? So
would you even call that an intercultural relationship?
Yeah.
Because like when I go to his home and I meet his family and like see how they do life, nothing is surprising to me. I'm like, oh, they use scissors to cut food as opposed to like chop things.
And they use really small towels.
Oh, that is so true. They use really small towels. They use like hand towels.
Yeah.
But maybe that's a good thing because then you can wash it more often.
It's just such an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you hang? Let's say you use four towels, four small towels. You gotta find a place to hang and dry all four.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I guess the biggest challenge culturally, getting used to small
towels. The towels. Damn it, those towels. And the really thin, flat chopsticks.
But they don't roll.
They don't roll. Is that the reason why they make it that way?
I remember someone telling me that. It's because it's flat.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about rolling off the table.
Okay,
like,
I guess
that
is like such a small worry.
Yeah, but if it's like a square, it doesn't roll. Right?
And if your table is flat,
yeah.
then it shouldn't roll.
Yeah. Has he traveled with you and the family? I know you've traveled with him and his family.
Yeah, I've traveled with him and his family. I thought it was really chill. I think definitely there's like things that our families are different in. My family, when we travel, like my dad likes to be in city centers, like urban. Is that an Indo thing? I don't know. Like if he's in Singapore, he wants to be like smack bang in the middle of Orchard.
Or the Jewel.
Yeah.
Indo parents love the Jewel.
Yeah. And they see like crowded, like developed places as the place to be. Whereas his parents, like we stayed in this cottage that was kind of in the middle of nowhere.
It was in Italy, wasn't it?
It was in Italy, and it was really beautiful. But I imagine, like, if I put my family there, they would feel like they've been deserted. Like, and they're like, oh.
I feel relaxed here.
Have you? You haven't met her parents?
I've met them as...
you have.
I've
Okay.
met them, but
as
not
like a friend?
as a friend. Yeah,
Okay.
because I guess it's like, in societies where parental expectations or societal expectations are really high, especially in terms of like who you bring home, and once you bring home your supposed partner, it's always like, oh, get married or break up. You're given that ultimatum. We know that Sue's parents are kind of like that, so
Right.
we'll leave it at that. And
do you think they'd have reservations about you not being Korean?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, again, on your point, they have an image of like who their kid's gonna marry.
Yeah.
And especially, preferably someone they know, parents they can hang out with.
Yeah,
do
like in
activities
the same
together,
city.
Same cities. And then, if you have a kid, we can take care of the kid for you and all that. So I guess a lot of it is beyond their expectation.
That reminded me of the conversation we had over dinner about Koreans and traveling. So that, I think, has been one of the biggest differences that I've felt with Eric. He feels bad leaving work for too long. And by too long, I mean over like 4 days is too long.
Yeah.
So then he'll book trips. Like we went to Hawaii for like 4.5 days.
Oh my gosh.
So then I thought, maybe that's just like an Eric thing, because he does enjoy his work. But then over dinner, we talked about this and we realized that, no, it's actually not just Eric, and it's a Korean thing.
It's a Korean thing. It's like, what will other people think of me if I take a 2-week vacation? Don't you think, like, for Indos, the expectation is completely different?
It is.
Where it's like, you only took a week-long vacation?
Yeah.
Like, isn't 2 weeks? Like,
one of our friends, he got married and he was going on his honeymoon, and their reaction was like, oh, wow, like he's taking a full week. Like weekend to weekend to go on this honeymoon. Yeah. Like, dude, Indos go on honeymoon for like 3 weeks or like a month sometimes. I think Indos are just a lot more relaxed.
And really flamboyant with weddings.
I think maybe that was one of the things that Eric found like very culturally different.
like Indo weddings.
The weddings are so strange. Yeah. They invite like 2,000 strangers in one big ballroom and everyone stands up.
Yeah. And as a bride and groom, all you do is just stand up and shake hands, right?
It is like the most miserable day. Like it just doesn't look fun. I mean, of course, the emotions and sentiment, it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But then having to wake up, people wake up at like, the bride at least, they would wake up at like 4 a.m. to do their makeup because it's just like layers and layers of makeup, and that shit has to last until like 12 midnight. And then at the wedding itself, they're wearing heels on stage, just like shaking hands. Like,
it's a whole day affair,
2,000
right?
people. And, usually it is, because you would have, if you're like Chinese Indonesian, you would have like the tea ceremony, whatever going on in the morning.
Right. And then like a church or a temple wedding, and then the big banquet. And then
maybe like an after party.
Yeah. And it's so different from Korean weddings. Well, I guess it depends, right? Like
we've been to one.
Yeah, that's super traditional. Everyone's like very, how'd you say it? Like very composed.
It's very proper. And even the outfits that people wear, they wear business casual. But then Indos, they'll wear like full like red carpet kind of gown.
That's true. And then you either wear a suit or a nice batik shirt.
What are some of the values that you've adopted?
So I guess in terms of being like the Korean values, I do like that no matter how different she is from her parents, she always finds time to be close to them. She's always kind of texting them every now and then and having phone calls and video chats. With me and my family, even though I visit them like every other month or so, I don't like the video chat. I don't like the texts. And seeing her do it and placing a high value on like FaceTime with her family kind of inspires me to like do more of like call my mom every now and then or text them more often, send more photos. Yeah.
I actually noticed that about Eric too. Now that you say that. So when we first started dating, I was like, oh, that's so cute. He would have like 20-minute long conversations with his mom. And they would just talk about like everything. Does religion play a part? Like, are you guys different religions?
Yes. Well, I'm Catholic.
Okay.
And Sue is atheist, or what's the one where you believe in God but you don't really know? Agnostic. It's not a big divider.
Okay.
In the sense that she respects me and I respect her. I'll go to church sometimes and she'll maybe go to Easter Mass or something. So I think it's great. And then we kind of teach each other things. That's great about our perspective, religion or spirituality. So I find that comforting. I would say with you and Eric.
So he grew up, I always forget the word. I want to say pescatarian.
Not Protestant. Wait, that's like you eat fish or something, right?
Pescatarian is you eat fish.
Presbyterian.
Presbyterian. So he grew up going to church. Mm-hmm. And I am, I guess, agnostic. But then I don't think that really plays a big part. Like most people I've dated or been friends with have a different view on religion anyway. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about what we think is different in the relationship. Do you know what Sue thinks? Like she finds culturally different or like shocking between her and you?
I guess the size of the families and how close we are. Maybe this is an Indo thing where
you have
so many cousins, but you're close with all of them, right?
Yeah.
And your families would be massive, but you would know each other. You
would see that if you just go to Jakarta on like a Sunday, which is usually like family day. Yeah. And then all the restaurants would have gigantic round tables, and you'd find like little babies to old grandmas all having lunch at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I didn't notice that was like such a unique thing until you live outside. Yeah. And you realize people don't really do that.
Yeah, at least like the immediate family for sure, but never every week we'll go out with our cousins or our aunts and uncles. And
like, I can't say that I'm like particularly close with everybody, but it's kind of expected that if we're in the same place, we spend time together.
Right. That's very true. And do you find that like, maybe it's a Indo or Chinese Indo thing? The families are just massive.
Yeah.
Like, I have like 8 brothers and sisters. I have like 12.
Yeah, and cousins and aunts.
And cousins. So, 2 things. One, what advice would you give for someone who's in a intercultural relationship, I guess, or just starting one? Okay. And second, because we're both Indos dating Koreans, what advice would you have for...
Specifically an Indo.
for Indos looking for a Korean partner?
Okay, first question. I think just be open-minded. See things that you don't know as like, oh, like what a fun exploration that would be, rather than something that scares you.
Right.
Yeah, and then I think in the end you'll find that you're not that different after all.
Not at all, yeah.
And I think it's also just like if you see them as an individual that you're trying to get to know and where they're from, that's just a part of who they are. But then it's not all of it.
Yeah, so that's well said.
Get to know the person as a whole and not label, like, oh, I'm dating, I don't know, a Korean who's Korean, and that's all that he is, because it's never that, right? Yeah. Like, you're Indo, but then you're so much more than that. No, you know what I mean, though? Like, you're Indo, but then that's not your identity, not your full identity.
Right. It doesn't make up who I am entirely.
What do you think?
Think of it as like watching a foreign film. Right? Because like, hey, listen, the language might be an issue as long as you have subtitles, which is like something you can agree on or a common language you can discuss. Like, it'll be a good journey, and I think you'll learn a lot more about yourself and a lot more about your own culture.
That's true. I think it'll make you realize certain things about your own culture, or like look at it from a third person perspective. Like, I told Eric about the concept of masuk angin.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, what the fuck? So in Indo, there's this myth. It's not a myth. It's real.
It's real.
It's a real thing. So if you, let's say, go outside in the cold with wet hair, if you have a damp shirt and you're in the AC, then the wind will enter you and you will start feeling ill.
If you go to parbhacy, there's a specific cabinet just for that.
Yes. I also told him the concept of washing your butt. Cebok.
Wait, is that not a Korean thing?
It's not.
I thought they have this phrase.
Because I feel like in Indo, it's like so common.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And then they also say like, don't give people things with your left hand, because that's the cebok hand.
Right. That's kind of rude.
That's the hand you wash your asshole with. So the concept is just after you do your business, after you poop, you don't just wipe and go.
Yeah, you rinse with water.
Properly
clean. Just like if you're dirty, you take a shower. You don't wipe yourself with toilet paper and you're just like, oh, I'm clean. Let's go to work.
So somebody gave me this really good analogy of like why people cebok. Like imagine if like you got shit on your hand.
Right.
You wouldn't just wipe it off with a tissue and like go about your day.
Right.
You would go and like wash it with soap and water. So why would you treat other parts of your body differently?
Yeah, I think that's one thing like Indo has. Same like Japanese culture and like a lot of Muslim countries as well, right? Where the culture of like really sanitary cleaning, I guess. Yeah, I wish that was adopted everywhere.
Yeah. And then your second question of...
advice you would give if you're an Indonesian male specifically looking for a Korean partner.
First of all, I would not suggest you do that because then you just have a fetish, But let's say that is your goal. What advice would you give?
Another similarity which I found about Indonesians and Koreans, it's very cliquish, right?
Yeah.
Especially, I guess you feel it more in like America or Canada. It's very cliquish where it's tough to get in. It's tough to make friends, but the moment you know someone and they bring you inside that circle, it's so easy to make friends with everyone.
That's true.
And that one friend is like your key to knowing everyone. Let's say if you and I don't know anything in common, you wouldn't even speak to me.
Yeah.
Right? Where if you know so-and-so, it's like, oh, I heard you're so-and-so's friend. And then we would discuss about him, and that's the key.
That's true.
Being social. Where it's like, yeah, I guess you just need that one friend in common, and you're good.
Yeah.
But you don't know, it's kind of difficult. And I guess, like advice-wise, just know Korean. Yeah, don't target specifically Koreans. But I guess if you're looking to date someone outside your culture, have an open mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this episode.
Hope you learned a few things and found it entertaining.
Hope you find an intercultural. No. Just do you.
Just do you. Have fun. Be open-minded.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ridge.
Yeah, I had fun. Thanks.
Yeah, me too.